Exposed. The spine-chilling rules of a haunted Ohio mechanic shop with unexplained secrets. Jake Collins wiped his brow, the grease smeared across his forehead catching the dim light of the flickering fluorescent bulbs. The old mechanic shop creaked, its historic bones groaning as if sharing secrets with the dust motes swirling in the stale air. As night fell over Harlan, a thick fog crept up, slithering through cracks like a bad memory clawing its way back. Traditionally, the dimming light meant closing up, but Jake wasn't ready to go home yet. He needed to fix one last, stubborn engine. Little did he know, what waited was much darker than rust and greased. In the cramped back office, he stumbled across a forgotten object, his father's journal. The moment he flipped it open, a chill raced through him. The pages, yellowed and curled, whispered tales of madness and fear. Never finish a car after dark, it read in frantic scrawls. Each word sent ice into Jake's veins. Trust no one who asks about the history. The illustrations danced ominously. Dark figures with twisted grins lined the edges of the page, enacting scenes of horror. It was easy to scoff. After all, tales like these were steeped in small-town superstition. But as he observed the shadows lengthening beyond the office window, unease clawed at him. An echo of laughter floated through the hall, sharp and brittle, thrumming through him like the ghost of a memory. It belonged to a girl who vanished, and her name hung over the town like a black cloud, heavy and unyielding. Jake swallowed hard, his heart drumming erratically. What was left of the once vibrant shop now pulsated with an unshakable dread. The walls whispered, the floorboards quivered. He was not alone. Morning brought new fears. As anxiety blossomed, Lisa, Jake's wife, shared whispers of late-night phone calls from Mark, their old friend. Mark's voice cracked with urgency, hinting at dark truths lurking beneath the veneer of everyday life in Harlan. They're hiding something, Jake, he gasped, and Jake felt the world around him cave in. Shadows of conspiracy igniting his paranoia. As he peered out at the sun-washed streets, there were muffled exchanges with the police that bordered on frantic. Their calm attitudes felt rehearsed, a dance of shadows not meant for the likes of ordinary folks like himself. Something sinister simmered just beneath the surface of their well-practiced smiles and forced reassurances. Night returned with a heavy air. Somehow, it stretched longer, darker, wrapped with the smoke of terror. Jake prepared to clock out, reminding himself he had to finish. But the environment slipped from his grasp. Tools clattered, the garage doors opened, as if inviting the night in. Each movement and sound screamed of unrest like the shop itself was alive, unmarred by human control. The walls around him twisted, appearing to bleed words in dripping red. Leave. The letters writhed as if begging him to heed their warnings. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The clock struck midnight with a hollow chime, sending his heart racing. Shadows weaved together in the corners of his vision. Something awaited, something hungry. A flicker of light caught his eye in the dust-covered mirror, revealing a figure that struck a primal chord of panic within him. As it leaned closer, he felt its breath creep against his exposed skin, whispering its secrets. What had started as a simple job had spiraled into a terror-laden legacy, leaving Jake at the threshold of an unknown horror. Would he let the shadows claim him, or dare to confront whatever lurked behind the veil of family duty? Jake's muscles tightened as he fought the instinct to bolt. The cold presence in the mirror should have terrified him, yet an unusual attraction held him captive. Maybe it was the curiosity, or perhaps the urge to uncover a family secret buried in the shadows. With a breath that snagged in his throat, Jake took a step closer, the floor creaking underfoot, a sound that echoed like a warning. The figure in the mirror was indistinct, shifting, transforming. It seemed to know him. A hand reached out, pushing against the glass as if trying to escape its cursed confines. Jake's heart thundered in his chest, blood rushed roaring in his ears. Thoughts spun wildly. Was this an echo of the past? The silhouette did not fade. It lingered, causing an icy knot of fear and awe to settle deep in his gut. "Get out!" A whisper hissed, a violent rush coursing through the air. Just as he turned to flee, a metal tool clattered to the ground, the sound sharp, urgent, demanding his attention. He cursed under his breath and picked it up, shaking with adrenaline. Something brushed against his back, breathy and chilling. Jake whipped around, eyes wide, but nothing was there. His chest heaved. He was certain he was alone in the shop, until now. The shadows morphed around him, and the distant echoes of laughter returned, haunting and sweet. Was it the ghost of the girl? The girl who vanished like a wisp of smoke? He stumbled back toward the office, feeling like prey within a predator's lair. As he traversed the cramped hall, memories of his father's words flooded back. Never finish a car at night. They were warnings rooted in something deeper, something he had dismissed as foolishness. They churned now, isolating him, gnawing at his reason. "Jake!" A voice called from the darkness, a rasping sound that sent an involuntary shiver down his spine. It wasn't Lisa. The voice was too distorted, echoing with a chilling familiarity. He froze, dread pooling beneath his skin, and turned to face the shop floor. The flickering lights seemed to stutter, casting elongated shadows that writhed and whispered along the walls. "No," he muttered, backing away slowly. In the corner of his eye, a dark figure surged out of the shadows, its form shrouded in a cloak of despair. It moved with unnatural fluidity, the air chilling as it approached. Panic seized him, and he bolted toward the front door, whirling to yank it open. To his horror, it wouldn't budge. The shop exhaled an unholy breath as the air thickened, wrapping him in suffocating fear that he could hear the malicious laughter, taunting him now. Closing in. You shouldn't have stayed, it taunted, circling him like a predator toying with its meal. Each syllable reeked of wicked glee, pressing down on him, suffocating what little hope remained. As the walls leaned inward, reflecting the madness of his surroundings, Jake threw his shoulder against the door, desperation coursing through him. He screamed, a raw primal sound that echoed back, swallowed by the dark. The voice grew louder, turning into an ominous chant, a symphony of souls lost in the night, warning him, or beckoning him. Suddenly, the door creaked, and with one final push, it burst open wide. Jake stumbled out into the murky night, the fog swirling around his feet, but it felt like the shadows were not done with him yet. He had barely escaped, but at what cost? The chilling laughter followed him through the night, unraveling the delicate threads of sanity that hung by a thread. Questions pounded in his mind. What had he awakened? Jake looked back at the mechanic shop, the flickering lights dimming but the laughter echoing in the stillness. Now he knew he needed to look deeper into the past, a past twisted with memories he was destined to uncover, even if it cost him everything. But what awaited on the other side? As he glanced at the chilling shadows beckoning him, he understood it wasn't finished just yet, and the night was far from over. The cold air bit into Jake's skin as he stumbled away from the shop, the promise of safety outside feeling more like a taunt now. He could still hear the lingering echoes of laughter, a cruel melody weaving through the fog. His thoughts raced, macabre images flitting through his mind, a girl, lost and searching, the shadowy hand pressed against the glass. The voice, horrifyingly familiar, shaking off the cold. He pulled out his phone, desperate for a sense of reality. The screen glowed, illuminating his pale face, but there was no signal. Just his reflection staring back, wide eyes filled with panic. He left it in his pocket, feeling now that he didn't want to look at anything. He needed to run, but where? He heard rustling nearby and froze. Heart pounding, he turned towards the sound, convinced he was being followed. His breath quickened, heavy mist escaping like little ghosts into the unforgiving night. Get a grip, Jake, he muttered under his breath. But his voice broke, trembling in the stillness. It felt wrong trying to talk to himself. He felt an onset of dread, as if the night itself wanted to devour him. He began walking away from the mechanic shop, feet crunching on the gravel. The shadows shifted, stretching and twisting around him, mirroring his inner turmoil. With every step, fear clawed at his mind, asking questions that twisted the knot in his stomach tighter. What did he unleash? Why couldn't he just leave it buried? Images of Lisa flashed through his mind, her smile brightening the dim corners of his world, a light that now felt extinguished. Whatever had a grip on him must have something to do with her. Was she in danger? Did the shadows care about her, too? A faint sound interrupted his spiraling thoughts, a soft whisper that felt like it licked against the back of his neck, sending shivers racing down his spine. Jake, come back. The air shifted, heavy with longing and despair. No, he shouted into the night, the voice echoing back as if the darkness were mocking him. Adrenaline surged, and he felt a primal instinct kicking in. He had to find out what these whispers meant, who was calling to him from the depths of that haunted place. The truth lurked within the walls, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. Turning back, he faced the ominous silhouette of the mechanic shop, shrouded in the thick fog. The laughter morphed into a discordant chorus, chanting his name, dragging him closer. Each step felt like it pulled him underwater. A feeling of dread settled like a stone in his chest. This was only the beginning. As he reached the doorway, the wind howled, a chaotic wail of spirits entwined with the cold night. The door swung open as if welcoming him back into its clutches. Jake hesitated, his breath caught in his throat. The shadows danced eagerly within, silent except for the laughter that now sounded more like a lament. Stepping inside felt like stepping into the past. His skin prickled, air thick with the memory of fear and sorrow. And then he caught sight of something on the floor, a frayed piece of fabric, a familiar pattern. Was it Lisa's? Panic surged anew. He crouched down, trembling fingers caressing the fabric. Suddenly, a sharp pull like a hand, cold and unyielding, gripped his wrist from behind. A voice hissed once more, "You shouldn't have come back." As his heart raced, he turned slowly, dread pooling in his gut. The shadows shifted once again, growing darker, swirling, revealing a form that hovered mere inches from him. And he knew, in that moment, he was not alone. But still, he had to know the truth awaited him, entangled in the darkness of the shop. What secrets did it hold? Jake steeled himself, taking a step deeper into the void. Shadows beckoned, and answers lurked within. Would he find Lisa? Or was he merely stepping into his own doom? The cold sweat dripped down Jake's temples as he faced the mass of darkness ahead. The voice writhed in his ears. "You shouldn't have come back." It slithered around him, a noose tightening with every heartbeat, every ragged breath. He swallowed hard, struggling against the terror clawing at his insides. The specter was near. Its presence pulsed with raw malevolence, the air crackling like electricity. His heart raced, a wild drummer pounding out an urgent rhythm in the silence of the shop. Who are you?" he whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. But the shadows answered not with words, but with a low, grating laughter that seeped into his bones, chilling him to the core. That he staggered back, searching for a way out. But the doorway shimmered with a strange light. Was it escape, or was the shop itself trying to trap him? The fabric lay forgotten as he fought against his senses, the urge to flee battling with an inexplicable need to stay. With trembling hands, he reached for the darkness, hoping to grasp an answer. Instead, it coiled tighter around him, an unseen entity wrapping him in its grasp, pulling him deeper into its cold embrace. "Please, Lisa needs me. I need to find her," he shouted, desperation washing over him like a crashing wave. In response, the shadows rippled, shifting in hues of black and gray. A form began to coalesce from the swirling mist. A girl, her face obscured, yet eerily familiar. "Help me," her voice echoed, ethereal and heartbreaking, slicing through Jake's resolve. The fear wasn't just for him anymore. This was Lisa, or a version of her, trapped in the echoes of the mechanic shop. "Lisa?" he gasped, suddenly desperate for the warmth of her smile. Every instinct urged him to reach out, to rescue her from whatever nightmare held her captive. But the voice returned with an edge. "If you take one more step, you'll lose everything." The ground beneath him felt alive, pulsing with a heartbeat that threatened to drag him down. Each word echoed ominously, resonating like a tolling bell, warning him of the sacrifice needed. Jake's resolve wavered. Should he listen to the dreaded warning? Or press on, driven by the love and hope he still felt for her? His mind raced. Could he save her if he succumbed to temptation? Or was stepping closer only digging a deeper grave for both? Swallowing back the dread, he inched forward. As he moved, the shadows receded, whispering secrets in voices that danced just beyond comprehension. "You must know the rule, the price you pay." They taunted him, pulling at his very essence, clawing away at his sanity. The sudden crash shattered the stillness, a cacophony of metal and agony that erupted from behind him. Heart pounding, he spun around. The same shadow that had gripped him now flared with life, revealing a scene from a nightmare. A boy, a girl, traffic lights flickering above, the fatal accident playing out like a grisly film on repeat. It was a chilling loop, a consequence of choices made long before. Turn back. You can't change the past. The shadow screamed, its voice now tinged with rage. Jake flinched, the horror of it all twisting in his gut. But the image of Lisa's face haunting, pleading couldn't be ignored. He had to know the truth. He had to confront the shadows. Tell me, he shouted, his voice shaking, desperation seeping through every syllable. What do I have to do? What's the rule? The laughter echoed back again, twisted and cruel, binding the night in a prison of fear. You will pay, for you know where it leads. He stood frozen, wrestling with his fear, while the shadows shifted in a more frenetic dance, a perverse celebration of chaos. The only way to liberate Lisa was to understand the dark truth of this place. In that moment, Jake realized it wasn't just Lisa's fate at stake. It was his own soul. Whatever game the shadows were playing hadn't reached its end. They were still hungry, and he was no more than their pawn. The laughter faded into malicious whispers. Jake felt the suffocating weight of a decision crashing down on him. Was the truth worth the price? With a deep breath, he gritted his teeth and took a decisive step forward, plunging deeper into the abyss of unanswered horrors. But what awaited him? Would he uncover Lisa's fate, or would he bind himself forever to the darkness that dwelt within the haunted shop? The moment Jake stepped further into the shadows, the air thickened, making it hard to breathe. Panic surged through him, churning his stomach like the deep, gut-wrenching engines of the wrecked cars around him. Something was shifting in the formless black, but he couldn't make out what it was. His hands trembled at his sides, clammy and cold as fear seeped into his bones. Stay with me, Lisa, he mumbled, desperately hoping she could hear him. The image of her face lingered, flicking ghost-like in the corners of his mind, urging him forward. The darkness began to swirl, revealing fleeting glimpses of the past, images flashing like broken neon lights. Accidents, screams, and faces twisted in despair. Each one paled against the picture of Lisa. If he stayed in this haunted shop, he knew he'd suffocate, that her figure would drown in the darkness forever. Help me. A faint echo of her plea curled through the shadows, a haunting sound that tugged at his heart. Find me. Stop playing games. Jake shouted into the black void, his voice trembling. The shadows shivered, recoiling as if his words had pierced them. But there was no answer, just that grotesque laughter, sharp and mocking, a cruel reminder of what was at stake. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, a biting chill sweeping around him like icy fingers gripping his throat. He couldn't tell if he was shaking from fear or the coldness that enveloped him. He had to fight it. He had to push through, but at what cost? The laughter morphed into whispers, a tide of voices crashing around him. You don't know the cost. Jake, you don't understand the rules. You will pay. With renewed urgency, he pressed on, driven by the heart-wrenching image of Lisa. A glimmer caught his eye, a glimmer striking through the blackness like a beacon promising hope. There, within the swirling shadows, a path formed, narrow and treacherous, twisted through layers of grating silence. He hesitated. The warnings rang louder in his head. What do I have to do? He roared, his voice reverberating against the walls. Just tell me. A rush of cold air, then silence. For one terrible moment, he thought he heard Lisa's voice again, softer this time, almost close enough to touch. Jake, it's all connected. You have to see. Before he could process the words, something shifted violently around him. The very fabric of the shop trembled. Shelves creaked, tools rattled, an unseen force roared with rage. Shadows bent and twisted, becoming tangible, reaching out like skeletal hands. Jake stumbled back, his heart threatening to explode from his chest. No, he screamed, wheeling around as darkness lunged at him. He fought the instinct to turn and flee. Turning meant losing Lisa, and he couldn't allow that. What do you want from me? He pleaded, desperation clawing at his throat. The shadows surged closer, slashing through the air like knives, slicing the tension with their intensity. Your past, your choices, every decision weighs a price, echoed the disembodied voice, sounding triumphant, triumphant over his fear. Jake swallowed hard, feeling like a puppet on strings, his heart racing faster than ever. You're lying. I can change it. I can fix this. As the darkness pulsed forward, revealing terrifying figures that haunted him, each representing decisions he regretted, he realized they were growing stronger, feeding off his fear and despair. Jake, the shadows hissed, making him quiver. You have to ask, but are you prepared for the answer? His breaths came in sharp gasps. The weight of realization pressed down, heavy as an anchor. In that moment, time seemed to dissolve, leaving him standing at a precipice. Could he really face what lay ahead? Jake clenched his fists, wrestling with the shadows, forcing himself to take another step toward the swirling void. I'm ready. I need to know the truth. But did he even understand what he was inviting? Before he could brace for impact, the shadows exploded around him, dragging him further into themselves, pulling him deeper into a truth he had desperately sought. What would he discover there? Would he find Lisa? Or would he unleash something worse? The darkness roared around him, swallowing his final wide eye in the all-consuming silence that followed. A new whisper echoed like an omen. You should have stayed away. Jake felt himself spiraling into an abyss, a whirlpool of darkness eager to consume him. The shadows clenched tighter, their cold breath brushing against his skin, filling his lungs with a heavy fog that clouded his thoughts. As he tumbled deeper, flashes of vivid scenes erupted around him, moments of laughter, triumph, friends gathered at a barbecue, each quickly turning dark, morphing into the faces of those he had lost. These were the people erased from his life by his own choices. In the chaos of swirling images, he glimpsed her again. Lisa's face surfaced through the torment, her wide eyes pleading for help. Jake, she cried, the sound piercing the fog. You can't ignore this. You must see. I'm trying. He shouted into the void. I've always been trying. But the shadows mocked him, laughter echoing in his ears, taunting him like schoolyard bullies. The sting of regret cut deep. Each whisper from the darkness sent shards of ice through his veins. You know what you did? Do you think you can outrun it? Jake was being dragged down, deeper than he thought he could go. The shadows morphed into grim figures, tall and gaunt, their faces warped with anger and betrayal. They beckoned him, their frigid fingers curling through the air like tendrils, pulling him closer. You owe them, Jake. You owe us all. Dizziness enveloped him like a fog. He was losing himself. Stop it. I don't know anything. But the gust of icy laughter surrounded him once more, suffocating him. Then, amid the chaos, he caught a whisper. It cut through the cacophony, a thread of desperation. Ask me. The voice was familiar, yet foreign. Was it Lisa? He wanted to believe, but doubt gnawed at his resolve. Ask what? He cried into the dark, heart racing against his ribcage. What do you wish to know? The shadows whispered, curling around him, revealing their sinister faces. The cost of the truth that could save or destroy. Jake's instincts screamed at him to retreat, to shove the darkness away. Yet, this was Lisa, his only lifeline in this twisted nightmare. If there was a chance to save her, he had to risk everything. I want to know what happened. I want to know how to bring her back. A chilling silence fell, so thick it felt like a tangible weight. Then, without warning, the shadows exploded in laughter, a cacophony of madness that sent shockwaves through his core. They swirled around him, enveloping him entirely. Her fate lies in your hands, and the choices you made. The darkness surged forward, and as it did, a terrifying truth flooded his mind. Each regret, each moment, each fragment of his past surged forth to surround him. He could see it clearly now, blindingly vivid: their deaths, his failures, the moments he had turned away from those seeking help. You must decide, Jake. Will you bear the burden? He felt the floor drop beneath him, shaking off the false bravado. No, I can't. Panic mixed with realization slammed into him like a crushing wave. What was he willing to sacrifice for Lisa? Everything. Nothing? In that terrifying instant, an image of her smiling face flooded through the horror, a paradox of warmth in the cold void. He had to save her, but at what cost? His skin prickled, sensing the shadows ready to latch onto his answer, whatever it may be. I will do anything, he shouted, his voice filled with desperation and resolve. As the shadows responded with a roar, he felt the ground beneath him quake, becoming unmoored from reality. They were hungry, waiting for his answer. But what would be demanded of him? Jake felt the gravity of his choices weigh heavily as the darkness wrapped around him like a shroud. What had he unleashed by stepping deeper into the shadows? The cacophony grew, a blend of screams and laughter, leaving only one unanswered question echoing in the depths of his mind. Would the truth be more than he could bear? In that flash of terrifying clarity, a new memory flickered before him, red lights flashing, the sound of sirens, and the echo of that fateful night. Was this the key? As the shadows closed in, he realized he was standing at the brink of something he could never fully comprehend, and the portal to revelation was about to open. Would he emerge unbroken, or would he become one with the darkness? Jake's heart raced as the darkness pressed in tighter, pulling at his very essence. The echoes of laughter morphed into agonizing cries, drowning out everything else. He stood on the edge of a chasm, a precipice of choice. What came next would either free him or fully consume him. The shadows shifted, their jagged forms flickering like a damaged projector. You seek the truth? Then hear us, Jake. The pact is made. They hissed, their voices a chorus of malice. The very air felt thick, like molasses filled with despair. With gritted teeth, he held on to the warm image of Lisa, fighting against the cold tendrils gripping him. I want her back, he roared, fury and desperation mingling in his soul. He had to believe there was a way out of this nightmare, a way to rewrite the past. Yes, the shadows cooed, their tone shifting to something unsettlingly seductive. But sacrifices must be made in blood. The ground trembled as if the earth itself disagreed with their demand. Jake staggered, his vision blurring. The weight of every moment he had let slip through his fingers crashed over him like a tidal wave. The laughter faded, replaced by the whispers of the lost ones he had failed. What do you want from me? Jake yelled, panic escalating in his chest. What is the cost? Everything has a price, one figure chuckled, its face now grotesquely close to Jake's. The figure's eyes glistened with an unspeakable hunger. It begins with a single choice. Among the chaos, a small flicker of clarity broke through. Jake's mind raced back. That night, the garage, the sirens, his friend Mark. They had been trying to save him, but he had run away, refused to help. The weight of that memory felt like a fist closing around his heart. Mark, he whispered, realization dawning. The pieces fell together. Could it be true? He was not just a victim of fate, but a participant in this horror? The shadows stirred, catching his fleeting thought. They thrived on regret, and he had given them plenty. Remember the screams, Jake? The crunch of metal? You were there. The shadows teetered toward him, a phantasmagoria of twisted faces. You abandoned him. Would you abandon him again? No. I won T. I won T. The conviction in his voice teetered, but he could feel the shadows testing his resolve. Then make the choice. They surged forward, ready to consume. All he had to do was say the magic word. But what came next was a storm of confusion. Should he go back? Could he go back? Take the burden from me, he cried, throat raw. His hands trembled as he reached out, grappling with a swirling mass of darkness in front of him. I'll take my punishment. Just I want to save her. For a moment, silence fell. The shadows hovered there, still. Then, with a deafening roar, they surged forth, their form becoming a tide of swirling chaos that enveloped him completely. Jake screamed as he felt them merge with his essence, tearing at the fabric of his soul, each sliver of darkness promising revelation but delivering only agony. In that moment, he could see flashes of Lisa laughing, vibrant, alive. Then her image shattered, crackling like glass, replaced by a more sinister image, Mark's face twisted in horror, a silent scream forever etched in his eyes. And then a new voice broke through, more Jason than a whisper. You are not alone. It was a voice he had never wanted to hear again, a chorus of regrets now gathered, echoing in the shadows. As the darkness thickened, Jake felt his body shaking. A burst of light erupted from within him, forcing the shadows to recoil. They shrieked, their pleasure twisted into rage. Dig deep, Jake. The voice pleaded. Face the truth, or become truth yourself. The pull of darkness still nagged at him, but with every breath, he focused on that light, the promise of hope buried under layers of despair. Could he truly bear the consequences of his past? Without waiting for an answer, Jake surged forward into the unknown darkness, determined to reclaim the light. But as he plunged deeper, the laughter returned, mocking his every move. disembodied voices whispering snippets of truths that felt both familiar and foreign. Nothing will remain unchanged. Why did those words freeze the blood in his veins? Jake knew then that the path was fraught with peril. One choice could shatter everything again. And deep within the shadows, a new horror lurked, waiting to be unleashed. As he braced himself for what lay ahead, a single thought gnawed at him. Was he ready for the truth that awaited him, or would he remain lost within the terrifying depths? The darkness swallowed him whole. Jake plunged deeper into the murky void, a creature of despair within its cold embrace. He felt a surge of disorientation, the air thickening, tightening around him like a noose. Echoes of laughter morphed into whispers taunting, relentless, their words curling around his psyche like tendrils of smoke. "Do you feel it, Jake?" They chuckled, the sound scraping against his sanity. The weight of choice. You could have saved them. His heart raced, each beat resonating with regret. "I want to make it right." The words were torn from him, a desperate plea aimed at the shadows that had now become a thrumming symphony of dread. "Right?" They hissed, circling closer, their forms solidifying into faces he recognized. Classmates, friends, loved ones, all twisted in agony. Does right exist? Or is it just a cage built of your guilt? Sickening warmth washed over him, a reminder of far-off but haunting memories. A flashback hit him like a lightning bolt, the accident replaying in vivid detail. Mark's terrified face, the blaring sirens. "I should have done something. I should have been there." The shadows recoiled, delighting in his distress. "You remember well, Jake. But tell us, what do you truly wish to change?" Their voices twisted, a melodic chaos, each syllable laced with malice. I want to save them," Jake roared, determination igniting a flame inside him. "Very well," the shadows chimed in unison, their excitement palpable. "But do you have the strength to pay the price?" The reality around him began to shift. The ground darkened, pulling him down as images of Lisa and Mark danced just out of reach. Their faces morphed into masks of sorrow, pleading for help. "Jake!" Lisa's voice pierced through the haze, sweet and sorrowful, echoing in his ears. "We trusted you," he stumbled, the pit of dread sinking deeper. Clenching his teeth, he shook his head, fighting back. "No, I can do this." "Can you?" came the whisper, chilling and seductive. "Face the truth, or remain trapped in your shame, forever fighting battles that don't belong to you." A new scene materialized, a darkened garage, the scent of gasoline and rust in the air. Memories pressed in hard, Jake wrenching, twisting the socket under the hood, ignoring the voices around him calling for help. He had to confront it. He walked forward, each step weighed with dread. The shadows shifted, their laughter intensified, weaving between the images. What kind of man runs away from his friends, Jake? What kind of man abandons those in need? "Stop it," he shouted, falling to his knees, hands tugging at his hair. "I can't bear this anymore." "Then free yourself. Make the choice," they hissed, claws of darkness reaching out, grazing the skin of his forearms like an icy breeze. He could feel their desperation mirrored his own. Their hunger fed on his turmoil, their purpose to twist the truth until it was unrecognizable. That swirling chaos. A flicker of light glimmered within him. "No, I won't let you win," he snarled, forcing the light outward. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the brilliance that eviscerated the darkness. But then they erupted in laughter, low and mocking. "You think you can outshine the truth? We are just shadows, Jake. Truth is what you fear most." His pulse thundered as the laughter echoed louder, drowning out his thoughts. The light dimmed. Images of Mark and Lisa flickered in and out, their sorrowful expressions etched into his mind. Would they be lost forever within the chaos? "Dig deeper, Jake," the whisper returned, a promise and a curse entwined. "Find your strength or become a shadow yourself." What remained of the light guttered in his chest. He felt himself slipping. He was losing control. Just as despair threatened to consume him, a sharp pain shot through his arm. He glanced down, and there it was, a crimson line, weeping and pulsing. His blood had met the darkness. And then came a deafening sound, a boom that shook the ground beneath him. The shadows recoiled, and Jake's gaze darted around. Something was stirring. "What have you done?" they shrieked, terror weaving through their voices. A pulse of energy rippled through the darkness, illuminating the faces frozen in agony. And at that moment, Jake understood the truth. Burdened by his past, he had ignited the wrong choice. Something darker loomed, waiting to be unleashed. The darkness surged, angry and chaotic, ready to retaliate. Through the blur of shadows and chaos, an ominous whisper lingered. The truth is only the beginning. Jake could feel it, a choice to be made. And as the air crackled with tension, a new terror dawned on him. Was he ready to confront what lay ahead, or would he be devoured by the very shadows he sought to escape? The ground trembled beneath Jake's feet, a sharp echo of a heartbeat that wasn't his own. The shadows around him pulsated, writhing as if possessed. The darkness he had thought he could conquer was rearranging itself, coalescing into a figure that loomed larger than life, a monstrous silhouette stretching toward him. Jake, the voice slithered through the air, thick with mockery, yet tinged with a sinister sweetness. You've unleashed it. Are you ready to face your darkness? He could barely breathe. Panic fluttered in his chest like a trapped bird, and terror clawed its way up his throat. The figure solidified, grotesque features coming into focus, features that were unmistakably familiar, his own face twisted in pure malice. I wasn't he the monster you feared, it sneered. You were always your own worst enemy. No, Jake choked out, shaking his head. You aren't me. This can't be happening. But the laughter that erupted was loud and jarring. It clawed at his sanity, and he staggered back, eyes wide, heart racing as he faced the specter of his self-doubt. It was more than just fear. It was everything he had hidden away, every regret and sorrow he had pushed aside, all now towering over him like a courtroom ready to render judgment. Do you really believe you can rewrite your past? Every choice you made, every friend you let down, this is who you are, Jake. You'll never escape it. The anger surged within him, a tempest of adrenaline and defiance. I can change. I can fix it, he shouted, but his words echoed hollow, lost in the impending storm of shadows. With that claim, the darkness twisted again, morphing, showing scenes he'd tried to bury, the screams of his friends, their faces marred with terror and disappointment. Each horrifying glimpse wrung a fresh wave of guilt from his heart. The agony wrapped around him, squeezing tighter until he couldn't tell where the shadows ended and he began. Are you ready to pay the price? Came the echo of the unseen whispers, the relentless reminders of his past failures. In desperation, Jake clamped his teeth down hard, rallying every ounce of strength left within him. I will fight. I'm not done yet, he cried, sparking the last flicker of defiance. Just then, that flicker flickered once more, revealing a deeper truth buried under the surface. Ghostly figures appeared, the faces of Lisa and Mark materializing through the haze, eyes wide with a mixture of hope and despair. Will you save us? They pleaded, the very image of his missed chances giving rise to a surge of pain. He stumbled forward, reaching out, grasping air. They were just beyond his reach, tethered to the shadows. Yes, I'll save you. I must, he shouted, voice cracking, but the darkness shook with laughter around him, relentless in its capture of his will. You think they can be saved? It mocked. They are mere reflections of your failures, trapped in your mind. Jake's eyes widened in horror as the shadows began to circle the apparitions of his friends. Sinking deeper into despair, the weight of guilt wrapped around him like a chain. He could hear the banging of metal echoing in the distance now, the sound of machinery whirring, clanking, a mechanical heart pushing against the walls. It echoed like an alarm in his ears. The shadows were pulling him back, inch by bitter inch. Join us, Jake. Become one with your regrets, they hissed, in the pulsating chaos. A violent surge of energy exploded around him, the crimson cascade of his blood illuminating the darkness momentarily. Layers of shadows peeled back to reveal the ghostly outline of a forgotten memory, a garage door, rusted and cracked, gaping open to reveal a much younger version of himself hunched over a broken bike. It was all his life's choices boiling down to this moment. Face it, that twisted version of himself shouted, looming closer. Embrace the pain, or remain forever lost. Jake felt the shadows tugging harder, threatening to consume him whole. But this was not just about him anymore. Every choice, every moment haunted him like a passion of lost souls. They weren't alone, they never had. He screamed with the desperation of 1,000 lifetimes. I won't let you take them. I will not be a prisoner of my mistakes. The darkness stuttered, momentarily faltering as if recoiling from his conviction. But could he muster the strength to push through, to rewrite a fate trapped in shadow? Hope flickered within as he clung to it. But what if the fight unleashed something more horrible than isolation? A new horror, lurking just below the surface, ready to consume everything he fought for. With a resolve born from pain, Jake lunged forward, an ember of righteousness igniting in his chest. But at that moment, everything around him began to shake violently, and an ominous rumble filled the air. Not so fast, Jake. The shadows hissed, a sinister laugh echoing through the garage and mixing with the tumult of his racing heart. As the ground shook violently, he knew that whatever was coming next, it would be a battle for not just his friends' lives, but his very soul. Desperation clawed at him. He had hours, maybe minutes. The clock was ticking. Could he truly change the path of despair? Or would this be his final descent into the nothingness he feared most? Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he faced the monstrous shadow that mirrored his own deepest fears. The air crackled with tension, each moment stretching like an eternity. He had come too far to turn back now. The faces of Lisa and Mark hovered in his mind, their hope entwined with desperation, and he realized the stakes were higher than ever. Face your darkness, Jake. You can't run from it any longer. The voice, a twisted reflection of his own, loomed before him, mocking and seductive. He felt the cold grasp of regret tightening around him, like an icy chain. But no, he wouldn't give in. You're wrong, he shouted, his voice echoing through the chaos. I won't let my past define me. I can change. As if responding to his defiance, the shadows recoiled momentarily, swirling around him with agitated fury. The laughter that once filled the air shifted to hisses of anger. The path to redemption lay ahead, illuminated by the most painful truths he had been running from. The memories surged like a turbulent tide, pulling him deeper into the vortex of his past. The accident, the sirens, the sound of metal crunching. Each slipstream of regret wrapped around him, whispering taunts, old wounds bleeding anew. Fear threatened to take hold, but amidst the dread, a flicker of hope sparked all around him. Only you can change what's tethered to this nightmare. A voice echoed. Was it Lisa's? Fight for us, Jake, or let darkness claim your heart. With renewed determination, Jake locked eyes with that twisted version of himself. I will no longer carry this guilt. I choose to face the truth and fight for those I love. He charged forward, the shadows leaping at him, clawing desperately to pull him back into the void of despair. Their cold fingers grazed his skin, each contact igniting flashes of pain, but it only pushed him further. Jake felt warmth filling his lungs, growing like a roaring flame. He pushed onward into the heart of the shadow, his own darkness. Suddenly, the swirling mass of despair exploded in a flash of light. For just a heartbeat, he saw them, Lisa and Mark, entwined in the swirling shadows, their eyes wide, shining with hope. They began to fade, but something in him ignited, fueling the connection he'd lost for so long. I'm coming for you, he yelled. The shadows thrashed, shrieking as the light surged from within him, illuminating the edges of their darkness. You can't escape your fate, they bellowed, but Jake pressed on, light cascading away the creeping tendrils of despair. Watch me, he growled through clenched teeth. The flickering images transformed, no longer blurred by fear, but instead reflected his resolve. With each step closer to the heart of darkness, he felt his power gain momentum, the warmth of newfound strength radiating outwards. His mind sharpened as haunting fragments of his past floated past him, his youthful self cowering away from Mark's cries for help. But this time, those memories no longer haunted him. They fueled his fire. You were wrong, you always were. He bellowed into the abyss, feeling the shadows tremble. Jake grasped the light within, drawing it forth with relentless vigor, chasing the shadows back into their crevices. It filled him, pulsing with warmth like a beating heart in sync with the truth he had suppressed for too long. The truth will set me free, he declared, and with one ferocious thrust, he sent the light surging into the darkness, illuminating the shop in a blinding wave. The shadows screamed in fury, dissolving around him as the twisted specter took one last shot at tormenting him. You can't believe you can save them. But Jake had transformed every ounce of his regret into a powerful shield. He felt the pleading presence of Lisa and Mark drive him forward, their voices mingling with his own resolve. "You're not lost. We're together." Light erupted from him, a radiant burst thrumming against the weight of despair. The shadows retreated, howling as they melted away, unable to withstand the truth he embraced. With the last push, Jake emerged from the darkness, panting, alive. The mechanic shop around him cracked open, releasing him like the dawn of a new day. He stood in the threshold between light and shadow, panting, breathless, but completely alive. The faded remnants of the past began to dissolve. The laughter turned to silence. The ghostly outlines of Lisa and Mark hung at the edge of the light, their expressions shifting from despair to hope, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. "Jake!" they exclaimed, their voices intertwining with warmth and safety. "I'm here," he shouted, reaching out. A swirling whirlwind of light enveloped him, pulling him into its warm embrace. When the fog cleared, he stood in the shop again, the dawn's light streaming through the shattered windows. A new beginning. The haunting laughter faded into echoes of forgotten memories, and Jake was left standing. Shadows will never haunt him again. He had confronted his past, fought for the truth, and as the first rays of sunlight warmed his face, Jake knew the journey wasn't over. Relationships needed mending, and healing would take time. But he could feel the weight lifting off his shoulders, ready to face the light, ready to live. He took one last glance at the mechanic shop, its shadows dissipating like the early morning mist. With a firm resolve, he stepped forward. And this was his pact: freedom from the darkness that sought to claim him, fused with the promise to never again abandon those he loved. This chapter in his life was closing, but the next one was waiting, shimmering with the hope of new beginnings. Now is your chance to ensure you never miss a moment like this. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes all the difference. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about the ending. We want to hear how you felt about Jake's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the word, because only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.